back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to review 3 books that I recently read. One is a pretty short collection of 4 novellas and the other 2 are fantasy novels. So I'm going to start off with the little collection of novellas, and that is 9 Parts Bluster and Other Stories, which is by A.Z. Anthony. This was sent to me by the author, so thank you very much. And I wasn't really sure what to expect going into this because it is such a short book. It's only 85 pages and I don't know, I feel like 85 pages is quite short for one novella, let alone 4. So I wasn't expecting too much, but I did actually end up enjoying this a fair bit. And all 4 of the stories take place in one world. I've since heard from the author that it is actually the world that the author is now writing a novel in, and I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of the world from that. But what we get in this book is 4 individual stories, each kind of focused around a theme or an event that is happening, and we follow a few characters in each one. In the first story we're following Senecio Zuliman Zhao, that's really hard to say, who is a famed monster hunter and quite a bizarre but witty character. He was a character who actually appeared in 2 of the stories, the first and the last, and I definitely enjoyed kind of seeing him twice, because I think in the first story you don't get as much as you want from him. To then see him appear in the 4th story made it a lot more interesting and made him a really intriguing character to me. So I do wonder if he's one that maybe would appear in a novel that the author would write. There's another person who travels with him, chronicling his story for him, and then in the middle sections in the other 2 stories we kind of have a band of people and then we have a young sort of protagonist character. Each of the stories does have a kind of bloody twist to it, hence the bloody fingerprints on the cover and the slightly macabre horror-ish vibe that you get from it. It does blend fantasy and horror quite nicely. I didn't feel like it was overly gory or horrible, but I also felt like there was definite horror themes within the book, and I did really enjoy it for the size of it and how quick the stories ended. I felt like it was a good story, so I gave it a 3 stars overall, and I think the 1st and the 4th were definitely my favourite stories, and they're called 9 Parts Bluster and Respectable Work, so I definitely enjoyed them the most. Moving on then to Moroda. This is a book that I was also sent by the author, and this one I actually did request because it sounded like my thing entirely, and that is because it has dragons, it has airships, it has sisters as the main characters, and it's set in a fantasy world. I mean, what more could you want? It's definitely got a fast pacing to it. It is a debut, so I think you can tell that in places because it is a little bit rushed in some areas, but I think there is a lot of development in terms of world building and in terms of characters. Particularly, I would like to see more development on the characters because I think that they are just hinted at and we don't see their backstories as much, but I'd really like to see that in future books. However, with that said, I know that there are supposed to be, I think, 5 others in the series, so it will be probably developed at some point in future books. I definitely found the main character, Moroda, to be a likeable character, but I found the other characters she travelled with to be more interesting. I think some of them were really intriguing characters, different races, different powers and abilities. I don't want to go too much into what they were because I want you guys to find it out for yourself, but I do think this is a really fun fantasy, fast-paced read that feels very fresh. Even though it does have ideas of dragons and airships that we have seen time and time again, it still feels fresh, it still feels innovative and exciting, and I think there was some really good moments in this of potential for future books. There's moments where I felt like there was sacrifice, there was love, there was trust, and there was fighting and battles and epic moments of dragons. There was a lot packed into here, and it was a very quick read overall considering how long it is and how much there is in here. It was quick, it didn't feel difficult. So I definitely would recommend this. I do think it's a really fun, snowy, wintry read, so maybe one to pick up closer to autumn, which is not too far off. but I would definitely recommend reading it, and I think you can get this super cheap on Kindle, so definitely go and check this out and do let me know in the comments if you do so. Next up I have Blackwing, which is by Ed McDonald. Ed McDonald is so nice. I just have to say that first up. I've met him a few times at events I've been to and he's just super nice, and so I kind of got the impression maybe his book would be nice, and that's not really the case at all. Actually, it's quite dark. It's considered grimdark. It definitely feels that way. It's bleak, it's misery focused. There's actually a world in this, or a part of the world called the Misery, which is the divide between the Republic, where our main character lives and most of the main characters live, and the Deep Kings, which are this kind of very nefarious, evil, warlord type bad guys, and there's this division called the Misery between them, which is a very forlorn, forsaken, horrible place of like sands that eat you and polluted sands and twisting creatures in there and evil nasty things. Like, you don't want to go there unless you have to, so it's the sort of place that only criminals will run into. I definitely found the world building of the Misery in particular to be pretty on point and really interesting, and I would like to see more in future books. Do I want to say that? I don't know. I'd like to see more of the weird magic-y stuff, because I feel like a lot of this book was quite military heavy. I do think if you are a fan of Stephen Erickson's books, if you're a fan of that style of grimdark, then I do think you would like this book, because I think it has a very similar vibe. It's about a captain who's got a troop of soldiers that he kind of overseas, and he is constantly going out to try and catch criminals and being sent on missions. He's kind of living paycheck to paycheck. He's not really well off, and so it's kind of a blur of his life and finding out a bit about him. And we also get a lot of information about kind of the world and the setup of it, how the Misery has divided the Republic and the Deep Kings, and also how there is this secret engine that no one really knows too much about. Everyone just knows it has to be protected and it has to be fed Foss, which is kind of the magic of this world, to basically protect them against the enemy, who are pretty evil and horrible, and you do not want to mess with them. Yeah, that's kind of the concept. It's definitely a fun read, but very dark, very broody, very melancholy. I do think it has a very good tone of misery to it, and I think that was very much intentional, and I think it works in this concept. I do think it would have been nice to have a few more female characters, because I feel like they were a little bit sidelined. But overall, I think as a story and as a concept, it definitely worked and it was interesting to me. I think my main complaint with the book was the ending, because I felt like it was a little bit too rushed and sudden, and I didn't feel like it kind of cleared everything up, but I believe it's the first in a series, so I'm sure later books will do that. And as a whole, I was very intrigued and very much enjoying reading the book as I went through. So I gave this a 4 stars in the end, and I definitely would recommend it. I will be very interested to hear other people's thoughts. Did you think it was like too military or about right? I'm interested, because I think it was just about right for me, but any more on the military I wouldn't have enjoyed it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Do let me know your thoughts on this one and the other two if you end up picking them up. And thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.